So with the PressCam8, the first thing you want to do after you install the box itself, put power to it, you've got to bring a 120 volt line side from one of the coils of your dual valve, your dual control reliable valve to these terminals up here. You'd put your any die protection over here. You have these PLSs or programmable limit switches, basically dry contact relays where you have a normally open, a common, and normally closed choices for these relays. You've got your fault relays down here, which need to be hooked up into a stop or e-stop circuit of your press control. There's some extra relays in there that are defined in the front here, like a counter relay, a die fault relay, a relay if you're out of the speed range that you're set for the job, and then the two GF general fault relays, which are the safety relays. These are captive contact, force guided safety relays. And you got a 12 volt power supply here to feed for this die protection, but it's very limited. If you've got a lot of sensors, you're trying to power some power hungry devices, you're probably better off using an external supply for that. And next is to hook this resolver up, preferably a direct drive, like through a Lovejoy coupler, to the crank of your machine. You can chain drive it, but you have to make sure it's really tight and there's no bouncing. Even when you think it's tight, it's probably not tight enough. But you can see here when I turn it, you get, it's drifting because I don't have a signal coming from the dual valve to that clutch brake input I pointed out. So I gotta put this in program mode and then reset faults, reset the drift fault. So first thing you want to do though is you'd want to run your press. Well, I guess the first thing to do would be to go in the limit switch setup, and you'd set up, let's say our press controls would take the first 3 limit switches, and you'd find the timing diagram in the book, like our 3200 press control, and you'd set these open and closes up to match the timing diagram for 3200. Once you have that set up, you have to bump the press up with your press control, bump it up to the top so the press is physically at the top, but then you go to press utility and you look for set TDC, because we're not at, but let's assume we were at top dead center, but this resolver is not at top dead center, so we want to zero it out. So I hold on to that until you get this fault, and then so now there, so I reset it, we're now at 0. The 0 is lined up with your press, which is supposedly at 0. So we've got that set up. Now we put in something like a min and max speed for the job. Oh, and then for the job itself, you can hit this. Now I can select my job, but I can also go over here and then I can give it a name or a number. It's got all the letters and whatever you want. And then carriage return would be to end it. When you get to the CR, that would be to like shorten the name. You've got stroke count, which you can hit the button to clear it, a batch counter, quality count, part count, and this is 1 part per stroke. You can change that. Now there's also on the back side of the door here, there's this lockout plug. I have it unplugged. When you're done setting it up, you plug it in, and that's like an extra level of security. Prevents you from changing the brake monitor, LS1, 2, and 3. It locks those out from people from changing it. I can set up your dye sensors here. Look in the book for the different types of dye sensors. You hit the button to select this in momentary, static normally open, static normally closed, maintain normally open, maintain normally closed, and it's giving you a choice of a window where you want it to be. We want to see a pulse within this window, but we want it to stay closed outside the window. And the normally open would be the other way around. It would be, we want to see it open outside the window and we want to see it pulse inside the window. Momentary is just between these angles. We want to see it pulse in whatever angles we would put in here. And Static would just mean it always has, there's no angles. It has to always be open or closed. And we have a go no go option as well that you can order, where it just waits for it to close, waits for the sensor to close before it allows you to run. But momentary, and then you can choose to top stop it, and then this on just tells you whether it's actually on right now or not. But you could choose, if you hit this, it would be a top stop instead of instead of breaking the general fault relays, it would do the die fault relay only. So you could select that. Exit out of here. Limit switches, again, you can select the angles you want to open close. You can even do a second, third. Over here, down here, you can do a delay and hold cycle, where you can decide that you want it to wait 10 strokes and stay on for 30 strokes, like a lubricator. And then you can even have it trigger at when it gets to a particular angle, you can have it trigger at that angle. So it'll turn on and off based on these two angles, but it'll delay and hold so many cycles. You can also do a start angle and hold time, where when it hits this angle, it stays on for so many milliseconds. So you can have it stay on for 3 seconds, 3,000 milliseconds, and at a certain angle, 180 degrees, and stay on for 3 seconds, no matter what. So it doesn't matter if the press stops moving or whatever, it's just going to stay on for those 3 seconds and then turn itself off. So there's different options you can do with these 11 programmable outputs. You got a runtime, that when the clutch input is activated from your dual valve, it'll accumulate time. You can reset that. You can set up your batch size, whatever, and then that'll increment the batch counter when it gets to that point. There's a servo setup if you have a servo, which connects to the DB9 serial port on the back. Optional tonnage setups. There's a speed comp for the programmable limit switches that you have to read up in the book. It's kind of complex. Linearly ramps up or ramps down the open and close angles of the PLSs based on the speed, and it's based on the min and max speeds you put in for your press. So you'd want to put in some kind of max speed of your press, and you can leave that 0 if you want, but if you're doing speed comp, you'd have to put in the minimum speed of what you normally run the press, like 80. And then that speed relay is going to fault if you're outside of these parameters. You've got your brake monitor, which is very important. Whatever you set for the fail point for your brake monitor, that's what you'd put in for the OSHA ANSI safety distance formula, because you're allowing your press brake to wear down to that point. In this case, 200 milliseconds. The warning is just preemptive to tell you when to change the brake, or when to tell you that there's something wrong with your press and you need to look at it. But the fail time is really the critical time. And then when you do cycle the press around, you're going to get the actual stop time and the dwell, which is the number of degrees it took to rotate around. And then motion detect is how long, when you put your hands on the palm buttons or foot switch to activate the press, how long does it take for it to start moving that resolver? It's set to 0.2 seconds right now. You can up that if you need to, but keep that as minimum as possible. 90-degree stop test to check if you're balanced. On the way down, at 90 degrees, it'll stop the press. That'll be your worst case stop time, obviously, for checking out the brake. And then back in press utility, there's a set password if you want a 3-digit password, so that keeps people from getting into these screens. You can do that. Clear job, clear data. Those are things in case your job gets all messed up and you want to start over again. We already went over set top dead center, tonnage capacity if you have the tonnage option, PC link to link to store jobs remotely on a computer, on a Windows computer. You can do there's some options you have to look in the book for light guard. If you hook up a light guard to your press control, you can actually have it automatically determine how far back the light curtain would have to be based on your stop times and depth penetration factor of your light curtain. There's a remote control option, and then language, and then you exit out, and then you would normally run it in run mode, because program mode only limits you to 15 strokes and then it shuts down. This would be where your tonnage would be showing up, but that's it. Then as you run, you would see the programmable limit switches turning on. If the die sensors were closing and opening, you'd see them here, and then it'll actually give you the letter F to indicate which one's faulted. It'll tell you down here as well. Resetting a fault right here, but that's about it.